warm welcome back to Heroes Behind the Badge. I'm Dennis Collins, joined by Craig Floyd and Bill Erfurth. In the last episode, we heard the first part of FBI Special Agent Ed Mireles' incredible story from April 11th, 1986, the day that became known as the bloodiest in FBI history. Ed and his fellow agents had tracked down two ruthless bank robbers in a residential neighborhood in Miami. The chase ended in a crash, and a deadly gunfight had begun. When we left Ed, he had been shot twice, his left arm was nearly destroyed, he was bleeding from his head wound, and he was lying on the ground with bullets still flying overhead. But his mindset was clear. This is survivable. Now, Ed is going to tell us in his own words how he survived and how he ended one of the most intense gunfights in law enforcement history using just one arm and a shotgun.
So with the bullets flying over your head and you laying on the ground realizing you've been seriously injured, somehow you miraculously, I guess, get to your feet, but you still got a shotgun. I'm not a gun guy, but how do you end the gunfight with a shotgun when you've got only one arm to use?
Well, you know what? I've been asked that question so many times, and people are looking for I don't know what my explanation is. They're looking for a pill. They're looking for a silver bullet, answer, and I don't have one for them. People have said, "Hey, what you did, with the one hand racking and so on and so forth, did you ever practice that?" I said, "Nope." "Did you ever see it in a movie?" I said, "Nope." "Did you ever read it in a book?" I said, "No." I said, under stress, if you maintain a disciplined mindset, maintain your discipline, focus on what you're doing, focus on survival and not panic. Okay. Don't get in fight or flight. It's fight, flight, freeze. Don't freeze. And you still have the option of running if you have to. Okay. But at this point in time, I didn't have the option of running. I had to sit and fight. So I was disciplined, focused, always looking for plans, and it's amazing how your brain under stress, your mind is working. Some doctors say, your mind can work 100 miles a second. I don't know what that means, but I will tell you this. I had scenarios going through my mind. I was like discarding them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I was going through different scenarios, different options. Every time I moved to a different position, a scenario would come up. I'd move some more and, okay, you can't do that anymore. You got to do this. So the mind was just constantly working, trying to get out, trying to figure out where the threat was, eliminate the threat. Okay. And then, after the threat's eliminated, then you can get aid, so that was my purpose. But anyway, getting back to what your question asked,
yeah.
How did I do that? It was an epiphany. Okay. I leaned up against the car the way I'm sitting right now. I'm on my butt on the ground, and I looked over to the left like this, trying to peek around to see where the bad guys were, because I maneuvered on my back. I kind of flanked them on the ground because I couldn't stand up, so I was crawling on my back, and I came around and peeked around the car, and I saw them, thinking, "Hey, I've got the shotgun. I had the trigger grip in my right hand like this," and I said, "I've got the shotgun, but I don't have a left arm, so because you need two hands to steady a shotgun, otherwise, it's not going to be steady." And I'm thinking, how can I steady the shotgun? And as I'm looking at the whole scene, I see the bumper of the car that I'm leaning up against, and I'm thinking, hey, there's a bumper, a lip on the bumper right here. So I said, hey, this will be my left arm. I set the shotgun on the bumper, had my right hand on the grip on the trigger, and I'm thinking, okay, line up the sights. And I said, just let it go. Press the trigger, boom. And when it fired, the recoil brought me back, and it just was so natural that I just came back like this, back to the original sitting position. I had the shotgun in my hand like this, and I'm thinking, hey, I'll just let the shotgun slide through my hand down until it hits the ground. I'll pinch with my legs, rack it, go down to the pistol grip again, bring it up, put the gun on the lip, and fire. Okay. Never trained it, never saw it in a movie, and it just a total epiphany, and it was, almost like a God sent miracle, because I'm thinking, how else could I have come up with that? I mean, I'm not that. I mean, I can't say that I'm not that bright, but in a survival environment, when you're fighting for your life, anything and everything is an option.
Close. How close were you to them when you shot him and ended it?
I was going back to wound ballistics. Okay, by that point in time, the gunfight's going on for about 3 minutes now. So I've been wounded for 3 minutes. I'm bleeding out for 3 minutes. So at that point in time, I was losing consciousness. My eyes were actually drooping down, and things were getting dark all around my vision. And if you're looking at me on the video, my head, as I'm working, my head would actually do this, and I'd have to shake myself awake, and I knew I was passing out from blood loss. So I had to keep shaking my head, and my head would still go like that, so I had to fight to stay awake. So I'm thinking, oh man, I'm getting close. I'm bleeding out. Instinctively, I knew, hey, listen, we got to move this along. you know. So at some point in time, and I don't mind talking about this but it's very personal. At some point in time, I had a conversation with God, because I knew at one point, and I hope you never have to get to it. I mean, maybe we all have to get to that point in life, but at one point I came to the realization in my heart and in my mind that I was going to die. Okay, because I was doing this. I was going, I couldn't hold my head up. I was just like, it was getting darker and darker and darker. So I'm thinking, hey, you know what? I'm going to die. And when I said I'm going to die, another miracle, I became fearless. There was no fear. Okay, I'm thinking, hey, what are they going to do to me? Send me to Miami? I'm going to die. So I have not. I mean, I have nothing else to lose. Because I've already acknowledged that I'm going to die. I'm going to lose. I'm going to give up my life. Okay, so what else can people do to you?
So Ed, I want to ask. So you finished them off, and that's the end of this gunfight. It's pretty dramatic gunfight, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
How many times did you rack that shotgun? Do you know?
5 times.
5 times. So you did it 5 times, one arm, by putting it on the ground between your knees, and
Mm-hmm.
functioned it completely as you had described. So 5 times. That's incredible.
Again, it was it just, when you're desperate to survive, I mean, you are scanning. Your mind is scanning for options. It's like, oh, that's good. No, that's stupid. This is good. This may work. And then you come up with 1 or 2 options. Okay. My other option was, I thought, well, maybe I can stand up and actually hold the shotgun one-handed and move in on the car that they were in. Actually get it, for lack of a better term. And there's no way I could have done it. Assault, but that word assault the car, moving in towards the car to get the shotgun up in their face. Really, I mean, that was my intention, because I figured, hey, I only get 1 shot. Okay, the shot that's in the chamber. I get 1 shot, put it right in their face, fire the shot, and then drop the gun and go to my revolver. And so I'll be at the car. That was also an option, but I said, well, you know what? I like staying far away, so so I decided to go with the racking action.
So how long did you have to stay in the hospital after that?
Yeah.
I was in the hospital for a little over 2 weeks, and I was home for a year. Okay,
For a year.
and I was off on light duty for 27 months. I mean, it was a devastating hit. I mean, when I got to the hospital, they told, my wife had responded. She's also an agent. She responded to the scene and then responded to the hospital. She was doing all the talking, because I was in La La Land. I was on morphine. I was on the morphine train. So she came to me. She told me. She said, "Hey, the doctor's saying that there's only one option, and that they're going to have to amputate your arm. And I'm thinking, oh, come on, you got to be kidding me. I said, I mean, can't they do something? And then I knew, I mean, it would have been a huge miracle. And they said, well, that's her first option. So what's her second option? And she went back and asked them, and she goes, okay, here's the second option, amputation. I said, well, that's the first option. And I said, they got to do better than that. So we went back and forth, and they said, hey, listen, we need to check his arteries. They said, hey, if my two arteries, my brachial and ulnar artery, are intact, they said they can save, the blood flow has to be able to reach the hand and the fingers. They said, if the arteries have been ripped apart, forget it. We can't save the hand. Okay. So they went in and did the, I don't know, the orthoscopic, tube thing, and they found that the arteries were intact. They said, okay, that's a step in the right direction. So if they're intact, we might be able to reconstruct his arm. Okay. So I had 3 surgeries in 2 weeks, and the first one was just to clean up the wound. The second one was to set my arm like a broken arm. And then the third one was to follow up on the setting and to make sure that there was still blood flow and stuff like that. I lost a lot of nerve I had a lot of nerve damage to the hand, but that's kind of, I was told by a neurologist that nerves have a tendency to grow back, if you give them enough time. And I've gotten to where I can feel. Initially, I couldn't feel anything but my hand because of the nerve damage, But they managed to save my arm, and I have a 50% disability to the left arm, But hey, 50% is better than no percent, you know.
Ed, I have a last question, and that is, after all this, the recovery took over a year. You're severely injured. You almost died. You thought you were going to die. And yet you go back to the FBI and go on to serve 25 years before you retired. Why go back at that point in time? It just doesn't seem like a normal thing to do after going through all that.
Well, that's a tough question to answer, Craig. It's like, I I don't want to sound like a crazy person, but I loved my job. When I was working in Miami, I hated my job in Washington. Okay, when I was in the FBI in Washington, because it was too white collar. Um, there's just, other than Congress, there's no crime in Washington. That's, by the way, in case the audience, I'm taking a shot at Congress, by the way, but when I got to Florida, there was crime everywhere. Even a blind agent can find a nut, in Miami at some point in time. It was such a great job. Such a great, I tell people, I say, hey, I would do this job even if you didn't pay me. It was that fantastic. I felt I was contributing. I felt I was helping people, I looked at it this way, if you have a bad guy, if you have a bad situation, a criminal, a complete scumbag, who do I want to confront that person? My mother? No, I don't want my mother to meet this guy. My sister? No. Your mother, your sister? No. The best person to confront a terrible person like that is me. And guys like me, guys and women like me, where I was young, I was fit, I was well trained, I was highly motivated, and for 1980, I was well armed. Okay, who are you going to send? My mom or my sister, or are you going to send me? I was the best person, and men and women like me were the best people to send to confront these people. Okay, and I loved my job. Okay, and I couldn't think. I was really terrified that if they amputated my arm, I probably would have been retired. Medically retired. And that really terrified me more than getting shot. I'm thinking, I want to have to sit home and try to do something constructive, and what they say, idle hands are the devil's work tools.
So Ed, Ed, you were talking about Miami, and we can both relate to Miami during the 80s. We both worked in Miami during that time. And, going back and saying it again, that was the era of the cocaine cowboys. It was from the early 80s, from the Mariel, Cuba, boats of refugees that came in when Fidel Castro emptied his prisons and insane asylums and sent 300 some thousand, 300,000 Marielitos to Miami. From the early 80s to the early 90s, for 10 to 12 years, Miami was the crime capital of the United States. There was no place else in the United States that was as wild, ruthless, and dangerous.
No.
And your suspects in your shooting situation were highly armed, but it was very common. People were running around, bad guys were running around, kilos of cocaine. I mean, the Miami skyline was essentially built on cocaine.
Yeah.
Brickell Avenue had every international bank in the world during the 80s on Brickell in Miami and laundered trillions of dollars of money.
Yeah.
Guys were running around with Uzis, Mac 10s, Mac 11s. The shootouts were beyond belief. But this is what's remembered by so many in this situation where, unfortunately, 2 agents were killed. You were seriously wounded. The other, all of you guys. But that finally changed, where now the cops are carrying rifles and the cops went to semi-automatic pistols, because it was amazing to me listening to your story, but amazing to me during the 80s, especially early on there, with so many crazy people running around with weaponry, and we were running around with 6-shooters. And I thought, how in the hell does this even work?
No, I mean, we made it work. I mean, men and women like you and Dade. I tell you what, I love Dade County cops, man. I'm telling you, they so many guys and women responded to our to help us, and I'm embarrassed to say that I've forgotten their names. I mean, it's been almost 40 years. But I mean, my mind's gotten old. But I'll tell you what. I mean, you've walked the beats in Dade. I mean, guys like you and men and women like you in Dade, Miami, and Miami Beach and Broward. I mean, those guys. I mean, they're the ones that have to work the front lines. And we in the bureau. The bureau gets sometimes we deserve it. We get a black eye or a punch in the nose. That we don't cooperate with local PD. But there were times when we were quite honestly, we were asses. But to defend the bureau, though, there are, and I've seen it from both sides. Okay, there are some cases that. And I've been on task forces when say, "Hey, you're not giving us all the information," and I'm thinking, "Wow, this information is coming from it's a sole source, one source in the mountains of Pakistan, okay, and it has to be held very tightly close to the vest. But we need to go hit this house because there's some suspected terrorists in this house. I can't tell you where this information came from. All I can tell you is that I need your help to hit this house." Okay. So, and I've seen it from both sides. Sometimes, we would just keep information from the locals because we were knuckleheads. Other times, man, you got that sole source in the mountain in Pakistan. Okay. that was somehow or another, the U.S. intelligence picked up the information somehow. And gave it to the bureau, and the bureau is acting on it. So we can't tell some poor sheriff in Dade County or Omaha, Nebraska, hey, where it came from. But we just need to act on it. So yeah. I mean, it cuts both ways. But I'll tell you what, though, Dade, the officers like that are. I mean, you guys are the real shield, between evil and the public. But one more thing before we. I don't want to let this conversation go without mentioning this specifically. I showed up. Okay, I'm just one of 8 guys that showed up. Okay, I just did what I had to do. Okay, the real heroes in this incident are Ben Grogan and Jerry Dubb. Okay, they made the ultimate sacrifice. Okay. They and I was there with them, okay. And I don't want to sound cliche-ish, but no, but I'll say it anyway. They put their toes on a line in the sand, okay, and they never stepped back, okay. And they took withering gunfire. Like I said, 140 shots. Estimated 140 shots were fired. They never stepped back. and they were both wounded once before they were subsequently shot and killed. But they never stepped back, And I tell people, I say, hey, they were at the tip of the spear, and I don't have a diagram to show the audience, but they were facing the subjects this way, and I was off to their left behind a car, and I managed to come around to the left. I flanked the bad guys, and eventually I came back up this way. They gave me time to figure out what I was doing, regroup, formulate a plan, and then execute that plan. Unfortunately, it was not with enough time to be able to help and save Ben and Jerry. So those two guys are my heroes. Okay, they're the ones that made the ultimate sacrifice. I just showed up. So.
Well, you were quite the hero there, Ed. I don't want you to take too little of the credit. But, let's just say the day you and I dedicated the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, Ben Grogan and Jerry Dove had their names inscribed on that memorial, and they're going to be remembered forevermore. We will never forget their sacrifice. And we will be talking about them and their heroics and their service for generations to come, thanks to that memorial. And telling the story here today certainly helped. And in closing, let me just remind people that there is a book out there that describes this entire incident, goes into a lot more of the detail and the heroics. It's called FBI Miami Firefight, written by Ed Mireles. And I encourage people to go out and get that book and read the entire story. Dennis, I know you're scolding us. We've probably gone over our time, but what a story! What a hero!
How do you call an end to this story? I mean, we could go on for hours, Ed. And
absolutely.
Thank you for your for doing this over again, because you know what, it's important. And I thought I knew a lot about this story since I kind of lived there and was in the news media and so forth. You said things today that I'd never heard before. And so there's always something. And, particularly what I enjoyed hearing from you, because, this is so important in anything you do in life. I don't care what it is. It's your mindset. And you spoke to your mindset of survival. I love your mantra. This is survivable. This is survivable. That is a lesson for all of us. Mm-hmm. If you could survive what happened to you, we can survive the little things, relatively small things that happen to us. Mm-hmm. So I take that lesson from your heroic behavior. This is survivable. Thank you for that. Thank you for planning that. That is an excellent mantra that we should all use. And in your case, it probably saved your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me as a guest. I really appreciate it.
Well, your story is unbelievable. Thank you, Ed. Thank you. You are a true hero behind the badge. Thank you for sharing your story. Ladies and gentlemen of our audience, thank you as always for viewing and for listening. This has been another episode of Heroes Behind the Badge. We tell real stories about real cops, and today's guest was a real cop. We expose the fake news about the police, and we tell you the real truth. Please get involved. Citizensbehindthebadge.org. You can get involved right now. You can donate to our cause. You can get involved with supporting the men and women of law enforcement by going to citizensbehindthebadge.org. Okay. And be sure to follow, please follow and like our podcast. That helps us, and it also helps you be first to know when we release another episode. And that won't be long. Okay. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on Heroes Behind the Badge.